Welcome to the Loft Literary Center and tonight's reading with the witty and delightful Freya Manfred and family. And we also like to welcome Margaret Boyd, who's in the audience this evening. Yes. For those of you who do not know, the Loft Literary Center provides a host of opportunities to readers and writers, including classes for all ages, grants, manuscript critique services, spoken word performances, and residencies. There are a few events that we want to alert you to that are coming up this fall. This Sunday, at 2 p.m., Open Book will be recognized by the World Citizens Organization as a place of peace. There will be music, refreshments, and of course, literary readings. We have a McKnight judge, an American Book Award winner, Leanne Howell, and she will be reading on October 3rd. Carolyn Holbrook will be curating a series of Sunday conversations with women writers of the African diaspora. Conversations will happen September 27th, October 4th, and November 15th, all at 2:30. And on November 6th, internationally recognized Stuart Pimsleur Dance and Theater will perform here in this space. And Stuart Pimsleur and Suzanne Costello will have a discussion about how the literary arts have had a long influence on their work. And please see our website for more information because there's lots more things happening here. And to get us started, I would like to introduce you to Norton Stillman. As many of you know, but it can never be said too much, Norton Stillman has been a leader in the Minnesota book world for more than 50 years as Noted Press book publisher, Bookman distributor, and McCarver's bookstore owner. He received the K. Sexton Award in 1995 from the Minnesota Book Awards, the Star of the North Award from Barnes & Nobles with his relatives Brett and Ned Waldman, and the Publisher of the Year Award in 2004 from the Midwest Independent Publishers Association. According to Margaret Hasse, a poet published by Noted Press, one of the most remarkable things about Norton is his capacity to forge lasting friendships, including with people he encountered through work. Thus, everyone at the gathering, including business colleagues, considered Norton first and foremost a dear friend and family member. And he is definitely family at the Loft. So let's welcome Norton Stillman.
Thank you, Sherry. It always wonderful to have an occasion at the Loft because it means a lot to me. I remember when we started Bookman, it was kind of starting then. And when Marley Russell had her first bookstore, we sold to her. So I know when I was starting Bookman with my brother and Ned, Freya's father, Frederick Manfred, always would come and visit Bookman. And he was one of our better sellers at that time. He had such big books like Lord Grizzly and Riders of Judgment, Conquering Horse, Scarlet Plume, Green Earth. And a lot of them became movies. But it was always a pleasure to talk with him. And I was honored that he came there. Now I'm honored that I got to know more generations from him and Freya and Rowan and Fly and Tom. And that's what's important to me is the friendships I make from publishing. It's an honor to publish them. And I was for Freya Manfred's 6th collection of poetry, Swimming with a 100-Year-Old Snapping Turtle, won the 2009 Midwest Bookseller's Choice Award for Poetry. Her 8th collection is Speak Mother, which we will read from tonight from Red Dragon Press in 2015. A longtime Midwesterner who has lived on both coasts, her poetry has appeared in over 100 reviews and magazines, over 40 anthologies. Her memory, Frederick Manfred, A Daughter Remembers, was nominated for the Minnesota Book Awards and an Iowa Historical Society Award. Her new memoir, which I was honored to publish, is Raising Twins, which you'll hear from tonight. And novelist Philip Ross says, Freya Manfred always startles me by how close she gets in everything she sees. Poet Robert Bly we're honored to have with us tonight here. He said, what I like in her poems is they are not floating around in the air or the intellect. The body takes them in. They are brave. The reader and the writer meet each other in the body. And recently, Freya received a note from Marley Rusoff, who was the founder of the Loft. She said, Dear Freya, I finished your poems this morning before getting out of bed. Walked into the kitchen where my husband was preparing coffee and announced, I have a new friend. Her name is Freya Manfred. Thank you so much for sharing your poems, especially the ones on your mother. And I know we're in for a wonderful evening, and I want you to stay and enjoy things afterwards too. And now I'll introduce Freya.
Well, hello friends, thank you for coming. I want to start by reading poems and then move on to trying to explain a little bit about how I wrote this memoir, which is the boring part for me, because I'm not good at explaining things like that. And then I'll quickly move on from that and invite our sons, Bly and Rowan, and my husband, Tom, to read a bit from the memoir that I wrote, the Raising Twins memoir. So that's kind of the plan, and then there's time for some questions and answers at the end. There's time for wine and drinking and food and things like that at the end. So that's how I hope this will work. I don't know if dreams are important to you at all, and what you dream and how you dream. Well, not how you dream, what you dream. And so I'll read a poem about dreams first. It's called The Dream That Made Us Dreamers. Some dreams take us into our deepest heart, inside our childhood home, inside a blood-filled vein, inside a stone. And when we wake, every dream animal has become part of us. Those that raged and those that leapt, our skin calm as sunshine. Who can understand the power of these dreams? It's hard to find a place for them in daily life where we rarely speak of what we fear, need, or love. Our dead ancestors trust what is older than time, and children and animals know we are more than our words or faces. Even small dreams take us somewhere. Where is mother's purse? What stranger is parked in the driveway? Watch out for the wolf. Dreams know where to find us. They creep into our mouths as we sigh and snore. They come from the rhythm of our breath, a broken cup, a tree in the yard, a pin in its cushion. Our dreams were born with the big dream, the day the stars and galaxies were born, and nothing gave birth to everything. Our dreams take us back where we belong, for we've been gone a long time from the place where we began. And here's a poem called Now. Now. I'm here, dying, fast or slow. I've known for some time this is how it would be. We are told many things before we live them. So I'm back to dreams again here. We are told many things before we live them. I recall my dream of a green river valley long before we moved there, and two brave, sweet boys who took my hands months before they were born. These connections to worlds that will be come at rare moments when I stopped to listen to the wind and the hush with the wild rabbits and the savvy squirrels. And I know whom I love and whom I hope never to meet again. So I celebrate my reunion with the voice and the music, the singer and the song, with the flesh so beloved that only dies once, yet lives forever in each moment that discovers the past, present, and future when I am in touch with the fullness of now. Here's a poem about, it's called The Things I Hate, The Things I Love. The things I hate, the things I love. The things I hate hide in my knees and elbows, grit and dust, half forgotten, yet always with me. But the things I love even more as I age. I love the way children hold half an apple and inspect each shiny brown seed. I love the blue-green shadows on the lake that match my husband's eyes. How will I live if he dies? Will each rosy moment today equal tomorrow's pain? Can I harvest these hours of beauty and feast on them as I die? I shouldn't waste time away from the ones I love. Even the words I write worry me. What is a poem worth? Will anyone remember its face, its name, or its first home, the heart it came from? Will they remember the day they died on the vine of love, or the lightning strike of lust that came and left with the thunder, when they rose from the dead, divine in their everyday moment, alive to hate, alive to love? Will they remember the day they died on the vine of love, or the lightning strike of lust that came and left with the thunder, when they rose from the dead, divine in their everyday moment, alive to hate, alive to love? I wanted to bring my family into this. My family, of course, some of them, well, none of them are with me anymore in the actual. Never mind. This is just going to be some. These are some poems I want to read about my family, my grandmother, my mother, my father. Since I'm reading from the memoir later with our sons, I thought it would be good to sort of bring back, evoke some of these parental figures in my life. This first one is my grandma, Shorba, who was born here in Minneapolis and raised on the River Flats, and whose father was, my grandma's dad was a bartender at George Shorba's bar, where Dinkytown, it's near the edge of Dinkytown, is now. And Grandma Shorba was really, in many ways, the love of my life. There was nothing I could really not tell her. She took me to every church in the area, although she was a member of the Russian Greek Orthodox Church. She also went to the Catholic, the Lutheran, the Methodist, and occasionally even some churches that people hadn't really heard of. And it kind of irritated the people in the Greek Orthodox Church that she did this. But I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was wonderful to get to know all these different churches. So this one is called Grandma Shorba's Ragamuffin Stew. During World War II, Grandma Shorba handed plates of bread and meat to strangers who asked for work in exchange for food. After chopping wood and mending fences, the lean, stoop-shouldered men went on their way. May God watch over them, Grandma said. I was glad I didn't have to follow them down the long train tracks silvering west. I didn't want to sleep beside a strange campfire around the bend in the next world. But I worried how they'd survive, and I asked my parents if they could live with us. My begging only made everyone nervous. Maybe Grandma's stories of the Good Samaritan and the loaves and fishes weren't true. If I'd been in charge, I'd have asked those men to stay. But Grandma, who trusted God, fed them, then sent them on their way. And I want to read a poem about my mother and my father. Another book of my poems has a lot of things about my father in it. The father that you might have known that was my father, the big, tall, 6'9", hundreds of books that he wrote, person that could take over the room with talk, but not always took over the room. He also listened. That father might be the one that some of you have met. I know some of you have met him. But this was the father that I saw towards the end. And I call this poem Little Boy Dad. And I have a quote at the beginning, "The truth shall make you free," from the Bible, John 8:32. The truth shall make you free. He was so sweet, propped on pillows in the back of our Chevy station wagon. Boy blue eyes wide open, hoping for a fried fish sandwich and maybe a piece of apple pie from McDonald's, where he said he'd never eaten in his life. We watched the August sun glow gold, then brown, then blacken slowly in the setting sun. We were driving back from the Mayo Clinic, where 2 world-renowned doctors had just informed him he might live 6 months, then told us secretly he'd be lucky to grab 3. Great guys, they told the truth, he said. He couldn't sleep and held my hand in his giant fingers as artlessly as if I were his mother, trusting me to love him as I did. He was in good spirits. He was in good spirits, as if we'd been on a marvelous trip to a faraway place, full of adventure and simple, everyday hope. Hope. One day when I was sitting around with my dad and mother, my father came rushing in and said, "I saw a flying saucer." And my mother said, "No, you didn't." So here's a poem about my mother. This is about my mother. It's a longer poem, and it's in 3 parts, but I wanted to read it because it was my best job of trying to capture her. And it's about her. Speak, mother. Speak, mother. This is Mariana in the morning. A lot of this is in dialogue. Mariana in the morning. "This is ridiculous," she mutters from her bed, where the portable radio blasts NPR. 89. Pointless. Incomprehensible. Why have I lived so long? She's not in pain. We've asked. Her suffering is over, at least for now. Her doctor is alert to her condition and mostly kind. She walks, swims, and shops with a grocery cart, and nothing is wrong with that sterling brain, sharper than her 3 children put together. Suddenly she stands in the doorway, leaning on her cane, shaking the black handles of her red Chinese purse that we gave her, the one she loves most. "Which one of you turned down the heat?" We hurried to set it back at 85. "Sorry, Mom, we forgot." "Let's hope you're sorry," she said, shuffling back to bed, where once again we hear her whisper in the darkness, "Ridiculous, unfathomable, and what have I accomplished? It all goes so fast, and then it's over, and nothing's been done." Part 2, Mariana in the afternoon. I open the window while Mother builds her arm strength with the physical therapist. I'll get your prescriptions," I tell her. "I'll back in an hour." When I return, she's hunched over a bowl of steaming soup, a hooded sweatshirt shattering her wild white hair and sharp gray eyes. "I'm wearing my warmest clothes and eating this soup because I'm freezing." "I'm sorry, Mom, I forgot to shut the window. Was the crank too hard for you to turn?" "Of course not. I can close it any time I want. I left it open to teach you a lesson." "Everyone makes mistakes. I said I was sorry." "I heard you, but I thought you might finally learn something if I left it open." "Thanks, Mom. I've learned I'm doing the best I can." "We'll see about that," she says. Don't make me count. Mariana in the evening is the 3rd part. Mariana in the evening. Freya says I should write about my life. Who does she think I am? Some hypersensitive scribbler full of hope? No one knows me that well. I don't know myself, and I can't imagine any of it being of interest to anyone. I was born into a family of Slovaks on the Mississippi Flats. Grandpa ran the saloon. I was his favorite. He pushed me in my stroller to see the trains. My father ran our truck farm. I hated him for mother's sake. My brother and I found her passed out on the floor after he beat her, his bottle still under the bed. She worked all week on the farm and took a bus to the city on weekends to help her immigrant family. She was the first woman to graduate from St. Catherine's, so her family felt she'd married beneath herself, an ignorant man. 2 sweet sons lay in their graves before I was born, and my younger brother, George, died on a motorcycle at 16, a month before I married. George and I had the highest grades at high school, and I had straight A's at the university, where I contracted TB, went to the sanitarium, and met my smitten writer husband on a gurney in an elevator. He was sicker than I was, and nearly died like his 13 roommates. But he was brave and sweet and strong. He forced the adhesions in his lungs to break by cutting wood and climbing the steepest hills. We bought an old gray house overlooking the Minnesota River, surrounded by oaks and pines, an orchard, a vegetable garden, throngs of iris and peony, and blood-red roses on a white trellis. My part-time work took up slack for a writer's income. And we had 3 children who became the best part of my life. We worked hard for decades, but lost our dream house to debt. After 34 years, we divorced and I moved 30 miles away. I spend most of my days and nights alone in sickness and health, with sadness, songs, and some family and friends. And now, my last home, where old women bend over their walkers, moving down silent corridors. Some know me, but most have friends and family who visit, living and dead, real or invented. One woman carries a doll and says it's her baby. Another shrieks like a startled swan. And Freya wants me to write about this. Why don't you ask her to write it? I guarantee you won't understand a word she says. Something about fate and hard work and love and mothers and the measureless universe. To read one more poem from this book, and I think it'll be the blue dress poem that many people have asked me to read. The blue dress. And this is not, okay, never mind. The blue dress. I don't recall pain or joy, only the blue dress I wore, and the door open to the sea, and the liquid sun across the floor beside the bed, and our crooning sense of having climbed Everest, undaunted, undeceived. I didn't know who I was, or who you were, or even what we hoped for in that slow, rushed, soft, harsh, pretend, real world. Even now, I don't know how to devour love like a golden apple stolen from a teacher who gives too many tests. So tell me what you remember and who you think we were, and I will nod and agree, though I doubt it happened. Beyond the sea, the sun, the open door, the blue dress, and the dream. So, thanks for listening. I'd like to talk a little bit about how I wrote this book, the memoir, too. And then I'll introduce Blind Rowan to you and Tom. This is the story of the stories, is what Loft calls it, which I think is a good way to speak of it. The memoir is this book here. And it is very hard for me to talk about the process. In fact, I hear the word process, I immediately just about go to sleep, to be honest with you. Whether it's books, poetry, memoir, fiction, whatever, it's just so difficult. Because it's antithetic to how I think, and it's antithetic to how I work. And I don't like to tell how I do things. I don't like to tell when or where either. I think it's unimportant whether it's 9 a.m. or 3 a.m. when I'm writing, whether I'm in a giant seashell, or whether I'm typing with chopsticks, or whether I'm in a giant oven sweating with grease when I write. That's really boring. And I especially hate to tell how I write something, because all I know for sure is that I'm a watcher. I watch things, and I enjoy it very much, and as I do that, I sort of join with or unite with what I'm watching, in a sense, in spirit and body, both. And I try to later to describe it, or even while I'm there watching it, I might try to describe it by writing something. And I just enjoy that feeling of being lost in something or someone else, and you rarely know what will happen next. It's tremendously exciting. Who knows? A leaf might fall. So then I reshape the words. I cut and cut and cut over many long periods of time, and that is less enjoyable than the original writing, but it's okay. And I make maybe 100 revisions of a poem. Once in a while, rarely, I make 3, but that's rare. And then a memoir or a novel, unpublished, all my novels are unpublished, that would be maybe 25 revisions at least. And that you want that because then it will flow more easily onto the person who's going to read it and hopefully enjoy it. So I want to move toward what I see and feel, not away from it. Or as Toni Morrison says in her novel, Beloved, that it is important, she says, not to remember, if you're doing anything about the past in your life, it's important not to remember the past with guilt or shame or regret, but to learn from it and move on. And in that way, and that's the end of her quote, but I feel like in that way we honor it. We honor it by not being ashamed or guilty, but just remembering it and then going on. Remembering the darkness, remembering the light of any circumstance. Okay, so that makes a person like myself into a kind of an intermediary or conduit between the world out there and then you, the audience, which is why when you do a poetry reading, for example, or something, it's not, you are not important. You're just, the words are the important thing. They have to get through me out to you. That's what matters. So it's nice because you're not as important. So then you don't need to be too nervous. I think it's a good way to go with readings. Anyway, to me, I've noticed that either beginners in writing or amateurs in writing, or I guess I hate the word amateur, the beginners in writing, or maybe academics too, are the most interested in talking about a process and telling how to do something. And all I really want to know is, wow, what did you make? And what did it say or tell you about the world or about being alive? The reason is I want writing to be what it is. I don't want someone to lay out a path for me. Oh, you follow these 10 steps and then you have a novel. You follow these 3 steps and you have a poem. You just have to do these 2 things or you just won't have a memoir at all. I don't want a path laid out in the moonlight for me. I want to go to the witch's cabin in the woods without a path. I want writing to be what it is. It's dangerous. It's kind of dangerous without paths. So a writer is a person who is just open to a vast number of things, and things inside it, including themselves. And so you might find out something very scary or very real or true. And this is sometimes bad, in some countries, people can be thrown out of the country or killed because they're going into the dangerous country of writing. And in some households, you could be killed or hurt by going into the dangerous country of writing too. Because it will upset the people. It might make them angry or sad, and so on. But it can also bring joy. And yet the safest I ever feel in this dangerous craft of writing, and I'm not nearly good at danger as some are, but some writers are, but the safest I feel in my whole life, strangely, in this dangerous territory, is when I'm actually sitting at a desk and writing about something I care about or feel strongly about. So for me, writing is not how to. Writing is doing and being. And the way to do is to be. That's Lao Tzu. Am I pronouncing that right? Lao Tzu or something? That Chinese philosopher? The way to be is to do. So, briefly, hopefully, in regard to this memoir, when our sons were born, I couldn't write for a couple of years. I was too busy. And then by the time they were 4 years old, I was writing a bit. But I did want to share their lives with my family. Tom's folks were in New Jersey. My folks were in Minnesota, and we were in California. And I wanted them to see what was going on with these guys. And so I wrote down once in a while what they were doing. And I just collected it, made a huge stack of all the things that they were doing. And then at Christmas each year, I would send about 15 pages to these parents, these grandparents. And they seemed to get a kick out of, these cute little fun things the kids were doing and the silly and the horrible things they were doing too. And it was good for me too, because I thought maybe I'm a little bit sleep deprived here, so in the future I'll see these notes and I'll remember all these wonderful things. And so every month I wrote about Nicholas Bly and Ethan Rowan and sent them off to the, and dialogue was a big part of it. I loved writing down the dialogue. And Tom, being a screenwriter, wrote down a lot of dialogue too, which I added to my pile. And sooner or later, 20 years went by, and these young men went off to college. And that was a natural end point, because up until then, the story I was writing for 2 decades in notes had no end. It was just no end, no beginning, no middle. It just kept going until they left for college. And that was the first time, after they walked out of the house for college, that I thought, oh, maybe I could make a memoir. Maybe I could do a memoir of this. And I got the idea that it might be okay to do this because I'd written a memoir when my father died. In '94, he died. And I was very upset. And over a 6-week period, I wrote a memoir about everything I could think of about my dad that I loved. And connecting me with him after death. And I found out during this period actually what prostate with grief means. That you actually fall down. I had never experienced that before. You literally fall down. That memoir, Freya Manfred, A Daughter Remembers, it won awards and it was a wonderful feeling. So I thought, okay, I'll take all these Christmas notes about Rowan and Bly and I'll make a memoir about them. And I want to cover the whole sweep of their life, just as I tried to do with my dad's book. And I didn't succeed then, and I didn't expect I would succeed now, but I went ahead and I wrote about 400 pages about the guys. And you can imagine how I did it already. I looked over the notes consecutively, month by month. I used them as a takeoff for each chapter and so on. And then I sent the memoir I revised it for 25, 30 times. And then I sent it to Wendy Schmaltz and Harold Ober. She was my agent for novels at the time. And she said that memoirs about kids did not interest her. She had no kids, didn't care about kids, didn't want to do this. But finally I persuaded her to send it out a few times. I think 10 times she sent it out, and it was rejected. She said that the first couple chapters had made her laugh. That was the only reason she agreed to do this. She said, if you're an agent, you have to represent something you love, not just some stupid thing about kids when you don't like kids. So, then, after the 10 rejections, she called me and she said, Freya, they're never going to take this book because it's not a niche book. And that was the first I'd heard of a niche book. What is that, I said. And she said, well, in the bookstore there are nooks or niches, and there's one for how-to, and there's one for memoir, and your book is both. And you have to make up your mind, or nobody will ever take this, because they know it won't sell. It won't sell if it's not a niche book. So it was horrible. And so she said, well, anyway, she wanted me to go for the how-to way, make a list of rules. And I said, really, Wendy, I feel this is a memoir. I just really wouldn't dream of telling anyone how to raise 2 children born the same day, let alone 1 child. And so having bullet points, a list of rules, it's not going to work for me. It's a memoir. Then she said something that turned out to be wrong. She said, I'm really sorry to hear that you want to make it a memoir, because memoir is not going to last long. There's a lot of narcissism out there in memoir, she said, and I'm hearing that the New York publishers and other publishers they feel that memoirs as a popular form of literature are going to die out soon. And she was obviously terribly wrong, because this was in '98, so she was wrong. Memoirs have really kept on being very popular. Anyway, so we went on, and she did send it off to people, and it kept on. It was rejected another 20 times, I believe. I had a lot of rejections. So I threw it in a drawer. I did some cutting before we sent it out these last 20 times. I cut a few stories and anecdotes out. I cut out anything personal to me, like struggles I was having with finding a job, that sort of thing. But it became all about the twins, and the big thing seemed to be, how can I describe the unique, subtle complexities that arise when you're raising two children born the same day? That was the bottom line for me, about what to keep and what to throw. So anyway, it was in a drawer, and when our sons were 30, I put some glossy covers on it, had it Xeroxed, put covers, and gave it to them for their birthday. And I was just delighted about that. It was not going to be published. I gave that up, and I really didn't care. It was a wonderful feeling not to care. And then, one day, a year later, I try to get through this fast. I sent a novel I wrote to a woman in town here named Lori Harper. She has something called Author Biz. She reads your novels or your memoirs. She tells you if they need cutting or work, and then she helps you find agents for them, because she used to be a New York agent herself. So I did send a novel to her. It was a kidnapping novel, along with this memoir. And she said, oh, they don't need any cutting. They're great. They're well written. I will give you a list of agents, and you will get them published. It'll be great. And so for 3 years, I decided to try the novel first. For 3 years, I sent the novel out through Agent Hell to get an agent for this novel, and I didn't get one. I couldn't get an agent. Any of hers or any of friends of mine, agents, nobody really wanted it. And so I put that and the memoir in the drawer again, the novel and the memoir. I didn't even want to try the memoir with Lori's nice list. I just thought, nope, I'm done. I'm getting older and older. I'm getting, Anyway, then one day, Norton Stillman, young Norton Stillman of Noden Press, invited my husband and I to his 80th birthday party. We had a great time. The auditorium was filled with all of Norton's wonderful friends, all ages and types, writers and non-writers. I had a lot of fun. They showed a movie of Norton's life so far, and all the things he'd done, friends, family, and accomplishments. It was just wonderful. And for some odd reason, as I was driving home with Tom, I said to myself, I'm just going to ask Norton Stillman if he'll look at my twins book and maybe he'll publish it. I don't need to keep trying to find an agent. I'm 68. This is enough. So I did send it to him, and it's about 6 weeks later, he said he'd publish it. And that's the end of the story. Lucky me, and thank you, Norton. So that's... I don't know how many of you are writers, and maybe we'll find this out in the question and answer time, but it's the whole thing of finding an agent is just so absolutely bizarre. But there are some wonderful agents somewhere. By the way, this kidnapping novel is really good. It's excellent. It's gritty. That's why they don't want it. It's gritty, but it also has full of joy. And a very interesting thing happened while I was writing it. A ghost or spirit came into the novel, and I don't even totally believe entirely in ghosts and spirits. I'm not sure yet. So it was a marvelous. It came into the novel, and it made the novel so much better. So, but anyway, like I said. So now I would like to introduce my family, and we're going to read a bit from the memoir. Here's my family. I'll tell you about them. Have we said anything about Tom yet? No. Have we? No. We better say something about you.
Should we all sit down?
Yeah, why don't you come up? I'll sit here and you can sit there. Rowan and Bly should probably be at that end because we have to share mics. So, I'll introduce these people. This is Tom Pope. He worked for 30 years as a Hollywood screenwriter with directors like Francis Coppola, Ridley Scott, and Wim Wenders. And more locally, he worked with Elise Salim with that Minnesota movie called Sweetland. And next is Rowan Pope, and Bly Pope is next. They both graduated from Stanford. They majored in studio art and psychology. I think Bly also minored in biology. And then they went on to the University of Minnesota, where they got their Master's of Fine Arts degree at the U. And Bly was in 2007, right, Bly? Mr. Young Bly, and Rowan in 2011, much later, a bit later. They've both been professional artists for many years, and they've won awards in numerous exhibitions. They've taught as graduate instructors and adjunct professors at the U of M and the College of Art and Design, Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And they've written original screenplays together. I could tell you so much more about their art. Rowan's art explores the human condition by telling visual narratives, and Bly's art involves intensive photorealistic studies of nature and people. Rowan has worked extensively with genocide and Holocaust survivors in a project called Voice to Vision, and his art derives some of it from the real-life stories told by these survivors. And he has an illustrated book based on the stories of a 91-year-old Holocaust survivor, Joe Grosnacht, and has received a major arts grant from Rowan, the Minnesota Jewish Council. And meanwhile, Bly's drawing of Freya, which is on my book flap here, of my poetry, was purchased by the Museum of Fine Art in Armenia. And also his drawing of Mariana was selected to be part of the National Portrait Competition in the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. It was there for a year. So they do a great job as artists and writers. Or put it this way, they're head and shoulders above me, and not their dad, of course, just me. So here we're going to read some excerpts from this book. Okay, this is when they were 3 months old, when our sons were almost 3 months old. Tom and I woke one morning at 3 at what our inner clock said was feeding time, but we didn't hear any crying. Previous to this, I had been actually breastfeeding for 13 hours a day, and we were both very tired. But anyway, so we woke and we didn't hear any crying. They were silent, dead silent.
Isn't it feeding time?
It's an hour past.
Maybe you woke up and fed them by yourself. How do your breasts feel? Are they full?
Yes.
Well, then you must not have fed them.
Yeah, I wish I could remember. I'm so...
Yeah, tired, yeah. Join the club.
Well, but Tom, why aren't they awake?
I don't know.
Dead silence for a while as Tom and I stared into the dark, and finally I said, well, I'm worried that they might be...
Dead.
Yeah, dead.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. But I thought you might get upset if I said it.
Of course I would. I'd get terribly upset. They couldn't both be dead, could they?
I don't know. Anything's possible.
Tom, how can this be? I really don't hear a thing in there.
Me either.
I'm afraid to go and look at them.
Oh, they're fine. They're just sleeping, which is what we need to do.
We both lay there, desperate for more sleep, but not wanting to say the next thought that jumped into our minds. Finally, Tom took the plunge.
Well, if they're dead...
Yes?
If they're dead, Freya, tomorrow morning, they'll still be dead.
Yes. Yes.
So, we might as well get some sleep. In fact, we can deal with it better because we'll have slept.
But Tom, you don't really think...
Oh, of course not.
Silence for a moment, and then in the edgy darkness, we both started to giggle. Tom's giggle trailed off into a gigantic snore. They're not dead, I said to myself. But Tom makes perfect sense. If they are dead, we'll face it in the morning. This insane statement seemed logical to me, and I went back to sleep. Okay, now that you guys are dead, shall we? about, let's see, what maybe this is. The next one is God and Infinity. This is when they're 3 years old. And we're going to start on the bottom of page 88 there. Both Bly and Rowan were fascinated by God and infinity, the concepts of that. And they grappled with these concepts at the same developmental level. So we felt that they helped each other to delve into the mystery of God. And they followed up on each other's questions. They challenged each other at an equal intellectual level, which actually forced more penetrating discussions. One day, Bly asked,
Is God the chair?
Yes, in a way, God's the chair.
So can we sit on God?
Yeah, and he can sit on you.
Is God in the table too?
Yeah, in a way. He's in the table. God is everywhere. He's everything.
But where? Where is he?
You can't see him. He's everywhere, but you can't really see him.
Then God is a secret.
exactly.
But is God the biggest secret?
I don't know. What do you think?
He might be if he really is everywhere.
A few days later, when the boys were lolling around in the kitchen, blissfully sucking on popsicles, Rowan asked,
Is God a popsicle?
well, sure, I guess God is a popsicle since he's everything, I said.
Then I can eat God.
Yeah, God is everything, even the food that you eat.
Dad, is God infinity?
Yep, God's infinity.
I know what infinity is.
Bly said,
I make a big circle with my arms. This is infinity.
That's right. Infinity is like a circle.
Infinity is zero,
That's right.
but zero is nothing.
Infinity is the biggest number in the world.
You can't see infinity?
No, not really, no.
Then God is infinity.
That's very possible.
Is Grandma God?
Yes, in a way, Grandma is God and everyone is God.
Is Grandma bigger than God?
No, God's biggest.
Is God bigger than anything?
Yeah, he's the biggest thing in the world.
he's also the smallest, I said, and sometimes he's not called God. He's called Wakantanka, or Gitchi Manitou, or Allah.
God is not Manitou. He's just called God.
Well, you're called Bly, and you're also called Nicholas, so why can't God be called different names?
Bly is just Bly. Don't say another word or I'll throw you out the window.
Well, you don't have to do that. A few days later, Bly came over to me and said,
Let me tell you something, Mom. I had a dream last night. It was so secret. It was more secret than God.
more secret than God?
It was so secret I can't tell you. It was so secret I can't remember it.
That's amazing, Bly.
You can't hear it and you can't draw it, but you can buy it in a store.
Then Bly whispered in my ear,
It's 10 big Newtons.
oh my goodness. All right, the next part is when they are about 6 or so, 5 or 6, 5. And it's, let's see, on the bottom of, oh, this is not, okay. This is, oh, sorry. I have my own book and I have it marked, so it's better that way. Here we go. Is this it?
Yeah.
Bly and Rowan, this is about sex and love. Bly and Rowan asked matter-of-fact questions about sex, but they were actually more interested in the larger concept of love, and who loves whom and why. They asked Tom and I about the differences between the two sexes and where babies come from, but once they heard the basics, they said, okay, we get it, leave us alone, please. When it came to discussions about love or feelings, we sometimes had to juggle two differing opinions and two different two separate egos. One day, for example, Bly ran into our bedroom and asked,
Mom, what is the most important thing in the world? Is love the most important thing, or is it fun?
well, what do you think?
I think love is the most important thing in the world, but Rowan thinks having fun is better than love. Which of us is right?
Well, loving someone is a lot of fun.
Rowan doesn't mean that kind of fun, he means playing. Who is right?
You're both right, I said. If you think that love is the most important, Bly, then that's right for you, and fun is the most important thing in the world for Rowan. Later, Rowan came into our bedroom and he said, and he said,
Mom, do you like me?
yes, I like you very much. How come you ask me that so often lately? I tell you every day I like you and I love you.
Well, I have to be sure you love me every day. Do you like Daddy?
Yes, I like Daddy very much.
Do you like him better or worse than you like me and Bly?
I like him in a different way. I like all of you the same amount.
I knew you'd say that. Between me and Bly, which one do you like best?
I like both of you the same amount.
I knew you'd say that too. You always say that.
Well, what's wrong with that answer? It's true.
It's true, but it's not true. It's not true because you always say it in the same way with the same voice, and that makes it not true.
What do you mean, Rowan?
Oh, I don't know.
The next section is about when they are about 7 years of age. And, let's see, it begins on 138, right? 137.
137.
I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Sometime during the last half of kindergarten, our twins decided to quit school. Tom was driving them home, and Rowan said,
Dad, I've had 3.5 years of school and that's enough.
Well, 3.5 years isn't that much, Rudy.
It's enough for me. For now on, I want to stay home.
And do what?
Play with toys, of course.
You like to play with toys now, but when you're grown up, you won't like them.
Oh, yes, I will.
Well, look, if you quit school at the age of 6 and spend your lives playing with toys, how are you earning money to live?
I'll make things and sell them. Toys. We'll test them and sell them.
a few days later, Rowan said,
I hate school, Mom. I don't want to go.
well, in the U.S., we have to go to school when we are 6.
No, we don't. Well, I hate school and so do I.
Then why do you say yes when I ask you if you had a good time at school?
We just say that.
You know, you can tell me what's really true, guys. I'm not being polite when I ask.
We don't tell you because it's our business, not yours.
Oh, boy. So, moving on the top of 139 here. One day a month...
149.
139.
That's weird. Your pages are different from mine, Martin. There's something wrong with them. Anyway, one day, a month or two later, Bly said,
We don't want to go to school, I hope you know.
I'm your mom, and I love you, but you do have to go to school.
Well, we don't want to.
Well, do you want to go back to golden years rather than Blake?
No way. No.
So you like Blake?
We do, but home is better. You can stay home and watch us.
I'm sorry, the law says we have to send you to school, and if I don't send you to school, I might end up in jail.
We hope you do go to jail. Then we can do what we want.
I'll be sad in jail.
Too bad for you. You make us sad when you say we have to go to school, so too bad if you're sad.
What will you boys eat when I'm in jail?
Whatever's on the shelves. We don't need you and we aren't fussy.
So you mean you'll eat tuna and peas and everything?
No, we'll eat candy.
Okay, that's
Oh, yeah.
let's see, the next is marriage, right?
149.
Okay. Oh dear. Yes, here we go. Girls. Discussions about girls also broadened and deepened in 2nd grade as our twins took on different stances. While Rowan made friends with a number of girls, Bly said he avoided them. Bly said he avoided them.
I'm not going to get married, not ever.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, some people get married and some don't.
Why don't you want to get married, Bly?
Because if you marry someone, then you have to kiss them.
That's true.
So that's why I'm not going to get married. You can ask me about it. I'm going to get married.
You are.
Yes, and have kids too.
How many kids?
3.
2 girls and a boy?
No, 2 boys and a girl. But Rowan, if you get married, you have to kiss her. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Well, I'll kiss her one time, that's all. One time is enough. Yeah. It's not that bad. I might have children too, but I won't get married.
How many will you have, Bly?
Just one boy.
And what will you do with your son?
I don't know, just hang around, play baseball.
Sounds good, Rowan. Okay, do we need to read this? Okay, we're going to move on to 169 now. Okay. Oh, birth order. I had been told by a friend of mine never to tell the sons who was born first, that the one that was born second would get jealous or something. But I didn't know really what to do, and so this was about that. The first time the birth order came up with our twins, we handled it the best we could. One day Rowan asked,
How many minutes apart were we born, Mom?
about 10.
Exactly 10? 9.5 maybe?
Well, you were ready to be born at the same time, but there was only room for one twin to come out at a time. So one boy had to wait a few minutes.
What do you mean? Who had to wait? It was Rowan, wasn't it?
Yes, Rowan was swimming around inside me, and he was thinking about things while the doctor was helping you to be born. And then finally the doctor said, okay, Rowan, you have to stop having such a good time in there, and he helped you out.
I know. I could see your breasts when I was in there.
You could? What did you see?
They were fat, all flab and cellulite.
They were not.
And I saw a big, fatty, red thing pumping and pumping.
Right.
It was my own heart.
Did anyone see anything else?
I saw this big, round, red thing around me, and you know what it was?
What?
You know very well. It was your womb.
During this entire conversation, both Rowan and Bly were beaming, and we saw no signs that Rowan was concerned about being born second. He seemed intrigued by the idea that he was remained inside my womb longer because there was something interesting to do there while Bly was being born. But then, a week later, wait a minute, let's see. Oh, months later. I'm going to continue to the... months later, the subject of the birth order did come up again, however. Bly came in the kitchen, and for no reason he smacked the cereal box that Rowan was reading, and then definitely grabbed it before it hit the floor, pouring himself some cornflakes with a flourish.
Real mature, Bly. That was real mature. Yeah, right. You're totally mature, so you should talk.
Rowan, what's the most mature thing that you ever did?
I don't know. Nothing. He's done nothing mature in his whole life.
Can you think of something, Rowan? When Rowan didn't answer, Tom said,
I was talking to Tate Preston's mother yesterday, and she said, the best thing about the memorial service when my mother died was when you was Audie and you stood up and listed the things that you liked about her.
that was very mature, Rowan.
Yeah, I guess so. It was not. It was nothing. You didn't get up and say anything. How do you know?
Bly was very mature too, I said. He decided he didn't want to stand up and talk about Audie because he knew it wasn't the kind of thing he felt he could do that day. Bly was very mature to realize how he felt and act on it.
Yeah, right, Bly. What a mature guy you are. I'm more mature than Rowan because I'm older.
Not really, Bly. You probably conceived at the same time.
Never mind conceived.
Rowan.
I forgot. Exactly how many minutes older is Bly than me?
10 minutes.
See, Rowan, 10 long minutes. Ha ha ha. I'm older than you and much more mature. You are not.
I interrupted again. You both were ready to be born at the same minute, the same hour, the same day. There's only room for one of you to be born at once. So Rowan was higher up and Bly had to come out first, and he's not really older in a way.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm 10 minutes older, Rowan. 10 very long minutes. 10 extremely long minutes, older and bigger and smarter than you.
Now wait a minute, you know,
10 mature minutes longer than you.
and Rowan started to grin, and they both laughed. Boys, I said, being mature isn't based only on how old you are. Sometimes a 20-year-old person is more mature than a 40-year-old.
Yeah, you mean the way we're far more mature than you and Dad, right?
So we have one teenage thing to read here and then it's a couple things to close with. This is during the junior high years. I had picked them up from the spring dance, 8th grade dance, and they were in the back of the car and I said, "How was it?" But there was no reply. And I said, "Bly, I'm talking to you. Did you have fun at the dance?"
Sort of.
What'd you do?
Nothing.
4 hours of nothing?
Yep.
Did you dance with anyone?
No.
How come?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I'm too tired, okay?
Okay. Rowan, how did you like the dance?
Dumb.
Dumb? The whole thing was dumb?
No, some of it was okay.
What did you think was okay?
Dance, what do you think?
With who?
I don't remember.
You don't remember anyone you danced with?
Not really. Mom, will you be quiet about the dance? It's not interesting. Yeah, I'm too tired to talk about it. When Bly won't talk about things, you always ask me.
Lara is a good dancer. I saw her dancing when I picked you guys up.
Who is she dancing with?
Rowan asked, instantly interested. With Nate, and Mary's a nice girl too, don't you think?
Not really.
Well, who is nice in your class?
None of the girls are. That's right, none. Get it straight, Mom.
Well, I think Laura is nice, and so is Karen, and so is...
Karen, you must be kidding. She's horrible.
Not by my standards.
Well, we don't care about your standards, do we, Bly? Nope.
I know you don't, but I drove all the way to the school twice today, and I want to chat a little bit about this dance, so would you please talk with me?
We aren't going to. You've heard enough about it. It's over with. Yeah, it's time to move on, Mom. The dance was fine, though dumb, and that's all you need to know.
So why did you go then?
To torture ourselves. Yeah.
Fine, that's enough about the dance. So now we have a couple of other short readings. Want to explain what they are, guys? Bly is going to read a paragraph.
We're at 217, right?
Yeah.
Where is it, though?
217, bottom of the page. Wait a minute, let's see.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, this was about the baseball thing. They were in a baseball game, and they had been really sick, and the coach yelled at Bly. But because he was yelling at Bly, he decided to yell at Rowan at the same time, which of course irritated Rowan because he hadn't done anything at all to upset the coach. And there's a place at the top of the page there where you guys could start together and then Bly could continue. Where it says, "That night Bly said," at the top of 217.
217. Let's see what I said. The coach. The coach thinks I'm not trying when I really am trying. He doesn't know how much I hate my own body when it won't do what I tell it to do. How long will I be so tired?
You're tired because you have post-viral exhaustion syndrome. But the doctor says you'll be able to play the way you used to by next year.
I hope so. I didn't whine. Why did the coach call me a whiner?
He lumped you together with your twin brother without thinking.
Why do people blame both of us when only one of us does something? Bly missed the ball, not me. Bly said can't, not me. Why are you mad at both of us?
Well, he sees you as one entity.
Well, it's the one thing about being a twin I hate the most.
And I don't blame you.
Well, we know it's important. We know it's important for you guys to be seen as separate human beings, but sometimes outsiders don't get it. And so here's what Bly wrote about hate, based on some feelings he had during this period.
Hate can be the size of a mountain or as tiny as a speck of dust. It is an ominous black mass emitting foul and evil odors, and is eternally buzzing, a painful, stinging hum that on reaching our ears makes us cringe in disgust. It has a sickly taste, as if something died in its shadowy folds and rotted unseen for years. A taste that takes our breath away, reddens our faces, and turns our stomachs. It has the power to destroy our natural will and take away our positive emotions and energies. It makes us insane, as if experienced often enough, permanently weakens our hearts and minds. It is an excitement unequaled in all the world, transforming us once more into primitive beasts, mindless, raging animals. Indeed, for all hate's terrors, we cannot live without it. It is as if we thrive and grow on the pain of others.
Well, the last excerpt that we're going to read is by Rowan, and why don't you tell about it, Rowan? How did you happen to write this last bit?
Bly and I applied to different colleges. I applied to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, and Bly applied to Stanford. And we never really talked about it. We never really talked about going to separate colleges and how that would make us feel. So I got really depressed at, that's at Wesleyan, and I actually ended up having to come home for a little while. When I was home, I applied to Stanford so that I could be with my brother, so that I could be at the same college as him. And so I wrote this. This is the essay that I wrote in my application letter that I applied to Stanford with, and I finally got accepted as a transfer student there. So this is the application essay that I wrote. I'm trying to figure out the question. Okay, the essay question was: if you could relive any day of your life, which day would you choose and why? Here's the answer. I would not want to relive any day of my life. One second. Unless I could learn from it, unless I were able to reach back into the boundless depths of my memory with the will and strength to re-experience it with tears of joyful acceptance and honest understanding. As Toni Morrison suggests in the last chapter of her novel Beloved, we do not have to remember our past with guilt, shame, or regret. We benefit more when by retelling a story we learn from it and are able to move on. Looking back with the will to learn, I would like to relive the day when my twin brother Bly and I were deciding which colleges we would apply to for early admission. Neither of us were self-aware enough to communicate with direct sincerity. In our typical adolescent, self-indulgent way, we spent hours mocking each other with raucous laughter and sneering brotherly criticism. As soon as I learned that his first choice was Stanford, I no longer called him Bly. I called him Stanford, Stan, bleached blonde, West Coast freak, and many other endearing nicknames. And Bly, when he learned I was leaning toward Wesleyan, began to carry on about how I would soon turn into a pushy New York hardass. Underneath all our banter, I felt confused because I had frequently pictured myself walking happily along Stanford's Palm Drive. But Bly had expressed his desire to attend Stanford before me, and I felt obligated to back off from a college that though it also fit who I was, suddenly seemed to be his territory, his new home. We had learned, as twins, to respect each other's drive for independence, though we kept a tenacious, unfathomable bond we were afraid to express on that irretrievable day. Even in our everyday life, we sometimes mutually agreed upon certain roles that were not necessarily reflective of our true nature. For example, I usually called our friends to set up social events, and Bly usually drove me on athletically. In fact, he too was good at socializing, and I was a good basketball player. I also felt terrified that day, consumed by a deep animal or childlike fear, because if I went to Wesleyan, I would be leaving someone with whom I had a healthy yet often unspoken competition my entire life, a person I had known since we shared our mother's womb. I worried that though Wesleyan was a fine match for me, I would have to leave a brother I loved so much that we seemed at times like two united and yet untouching sides of the same strand of DNA, spiraling around one another in an eternal dance. Now I know that it would have been better to express my feelings of loss or pain at the moment I felt them, rather than evade the situation with jokes, pride, or silence. One night after I'd been at Wesleyan a few months, I allowed my feelings for Bly to emerge, and I felt as if I might die, as if Bly might die, because I could not, in my sadness, imagine how I could get through one more day without seeing his face. Though I had many worthwhile and moving experiences and new friends at Wesleyan, reaching out to Bly via email, telephone, and photo albums could not fill the hole in my heart. And finally, when I dared to express my love to Bly, he said he felt the same. Like, what's the use, what's the point, without each other's occasional presence? So, if we can allow ourselves to express and act on our feelings, Bly and I will be happier. For nearly 20 years, our relationship has been closer than most marriages, and we complement each other. Such a relationship deserves further efforts at intimacy, and that is what I have learned from that day more than a year ago when we agreed to separate without a truthful emotional dialogue, a dialogue that I'd like to continue at Stanford.
Thanks very much for coming. It's really great that you could come and be here with us tonight. And I'm really glad Rowan and Bly could join Tom and myself. It's really meant a lot.
Thank you.